So now we're going to try to get a feel for how the noun works in ancient Greek, ancient slash Koine slash New Testament Greek. And what we're going to do, we're going to take a word we already know from the pronunciation video. We're going to take this word cosmos. And we're going to see how it changes its form depending upon its function in a sentence. So I think the best way to do this is we're going to translate everything into English, and then we're going to look at just this word, and that way we can really zero in and pay attention to this, to the forms. One thing we'll have to add is what's called a definite article. Now, this word by itself, cosmos, it means world. It could mean a world. In every instance, we're going to look at 4 verses. In every instance, it's going to be preceded by the word the. And it won't be a big deal, and we'll talk about it when it arises there. So all of these come from the Gospel of John. The first one here is 15:18. We'll just take the first part of it, and let's see if it's, make sure it's visible here. If the world hates you. Now it, of course, continues. Know that it has hated me first. And what we're going to do, just to make this very clear, we're going to look at how this word, this is the world, how it looks when we look at this in Greek. And by the way, I'll put this down. It's 15:18. I guess that is clear that that's the book of John there. So what we will find in this instance the world in this case is ho cosmos. That should be around, that's an Omicron there, got a little smushed. The point here is that the world, it's doing the action, it's the subject of the sentence, it has this form. To say that another way is that the dictionary entries are the subject form. I am not, in this video, we're not going to use any of the kind of the standard, let's say, technical language that describes these. We're just going to look and observe, and in the next video, we'll talk more about how these are actually called. So that's pretty straightforward. This is our definite article. It means the. And Greek, unlike English, has, you could either say it has many words for the, or it has one word that appears in many different forms. And we're going to see that in just a minute. So let's go on to the next sentence. And there's a very, I think these are all pretty well known. I am the light of the world. That's John 8:12. So here we have of the, not word, let's see if I can actually spell, of the world. So in this case, we won't see ho cosmos. We're going to see I am the light to cosmos. And that is this entire thing here. Just like here. The world, in this case, was ho cosmos. Of the world, in Greek, to cosmos. The article has changed, and the ending of our word cosmos has changed. kosmou. And this indicates what we might call possession. We don't, or in Greek, we don't need to use a preposition for that. We don't have to say of the world. It would be like using a word whose or his or something like that, or hers. Okay, let's see if I can fit the others on here. So in John 16:33, actually the last two sentences we're going to look at, or thoughts, come from the same verse. So it's in the world, and that's really, but you have affliction, it's thlipsis, you have tribulation. I like affliction. I'm not sure. Well, let's go with tribulation. I don't know. I don't know that anyone can read my writing. You have tribulation. So now what we're concerned about is in the world. In this case, there is a preposition, and I'm going to go ahead and include it because it looks so similar. Instead of in, it's en. En to kosmo. If I could learn to write. This is still easier than me trying to type it in the keyboard, though. Ento kosmo. So here, once again, the form changes. The ending is an omega with the iota subscript. That was kind of in the last part of the alphabet video. So this is what we get when we use this preposition here. In the world, ento kosmo, you have tribulation. And like I said, I'm going to try. Oop. Well, we'll leave that there. Sorry about that. And now, at the end of that, Jesus says, I have overcome the world. I've conquered the world. We'll say, I have overcome. It's nani keka. I have overcome the world. Now, in this case, the word is going to look like tone. It's an omega, or an omicron. Tone kosmo. And that's a new tone kosmo. Now, one thing to kind of pay attention to, if we look at like the first one and the last one, by the way, those are both, let's put this here. Let's put both of these. That, notice if we just look at the English, I have overcome the world. If the world hates you. So the form of the word in English doesn't change, the position does. And that's how we know if something is an object or a subject, really. In Greek, that's not true. You can put these words basically anywhere. It's the form of the word is going to tell us. So for instance, actually in this first part, if we were to look at the other part in Greek, hates you, actually this is inverted in Greek. Himas mise. So it would, if you did it word by word, if the world you hates. But they know from the form of himas that it's an object and not a subject. So that's one of the main things to kind of keep in mind, is that one of the differences to keep in mind is that Greek changes the form of the word to tell us what its function is, what it's doing. In English, we basically use position and we use prepositions. Of course, they use prepositions. There's a ton of prepositions in Greek. So I think this will get us started. We'll go more in depth. I guess one thing that isn't directly related to the forms of the word is this word cosmos. Of course, it means world, universe. It can mean the created world. It also, of course, means like the social world as well. And it's extremely deep. You know, all of these statements are extremely deep, needless to say. So, but that's an aside. That's not exactly the focus of, you know, what we're, not the focus here, which again is simply on paying attention to how the form of the word changes. Now, one thing that I have noticed about the way I write is that you have to be, why printing or, you know, using a computer is better. You have to make sure that these don't end up looking like that. So, but in printed, you're never gonna have a problem like that. With someone's handwriting, like mine, which is terrible, you can run into some problems. But okay, that's where we're gonna leave this. The next video, we'll talk more in depth about Greek nouns. And we'll also notice we only talked about the singular situation. There are plurals. There's another situation, I guess I'll just throw it out here right now. We won't use it with this word because I don't really think it comes up. But there's another instance where if you were to address, you know, a noun or probably a person. So, for instance, there's a word like, well, here, let's take one that we've done already. Christos. Christos. If you were to address Christos, like in the Latin Mass, which they kept in Greek, Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison. If you were to say, "O Christ," it's not. It has a different form. It looks like that, and I'm assuming that's. I don't know that I should look up this accent, but I think that's where it goes. It shouldn't change. So Christos, Christe.